Hi everyone, welcome to my Shoreline studio. Today we're talking about transfers and the problems, and let's do a whole bunch of troubleshooting. Now the thing is, I haven't had any trouble with transfers. They've just been really easy to do, and I was wondering where everybody's problems were. Well, I had a big comeuppance the other day and I had just about a whole raft of failures. And I couldn't really believe my eyes, but there you are. And obviously I had to learn about these problems. And now I think we have it all solved, and we're going to go through some of these things. And hopefully that will be very helpful for those of you who have had troubles as well. All right, so starting off, we're going to just start simply and just do a little one. We're going to continue with the birds on the lake, and this is Barrow's Goldeneye. You can't really see the eye very well. Anyway, we'll put an eye in later. But the point is, we start off with a photocopy that is very contrasty. Now, I found that the black and white photographs aren't quite as good. And so what I do is I work with the color photographs and get them as close to black and white as I can. And I up the contrast, and I just do everything I can to give it as much saturation as possible. So go to your saturation point as well and up it as far as it'll go, or however well it will work. And then we found that if you do the photocopy, you have to have a good long wait before you can use them. If you do them right after they're out of the printer, even though they've cooled, it just doesn't work. That's where one of our failures came in. We tried, how many? 6 times? So then I threw them in the freezer, and so, you know, to up the time that they're going to work. And that helped, but it's best to wait 2 or 3 days. So if you're going to be doing transfers, then do your photocopies, you know, get them waiting for 2 or 3 days, and it should be fine. Okay, so the other thing is temperature. So the temperature in the room, and that was one of the problems in the last video, what was it, 54. Check that one and you can see where we had major problems. Anyway, in this case, you know, as I said, leave it and then get back to it, get your saturation down, and then start working, you know, 2 or 3 days later. So here we are. We're going to work with the Barrow's Goldeneye. We're going to be working with a swan, and hopefully our heron. Now the heron is a problem because it has so much of the detail here, all these straws and grasses and whatever. Plus some of it looks like straw on him. And then finally we have, you know, really good black and white. And even though I've done it, as I said, in color, it seems to work better for my printer. So that's a start. Now, as far as paints go, the Amsterdam acrylics are great. Nitsa Malik wrote a book about transfers, and I think she used a lot of Amsterdam paints. And we'll be doing that, but with some additions. Now, the black is the problem. Not only at the printer level, because it's not saturated enough, but also at the plate level. So what I've been doing is I'm adding my blues to it as dark as possible. And this is my Prussian blue, and you can use ultramarine blue as well. I'll use the regular black, but I also use the Golden Open Fluid black. So just a touch of this because it will get sticky, remember. And then as well is the Open Acrylic medium. And again, not too much of this, but what it helps with is keeping it fluid so that your transfer comes up. The other thing to think about is your lifting print. When you're lifting the transfer onto paper, you should have a fairly opaque color, so something that has white in it. You can use straight white, or you can use, maybe grays, or this is neutral gray. So anything of this nature, and good to have white in it. So, all right, let's start. I'm just going to mix it up here on my little extra palette sheet. So that's the Prussian blue, a little bit of black. And remember, not too much paint. That's another problem that people have. They put way too much paint on. I think this is carbon black. Yep. Okay, and that's about all you need. Then we're just going to mix it all up. You can see the Prussian blue in there. And we'll roll it out so it's nice and even. We're going to use a little plate first. So it's not that thick, but it's not that thin either. It shouldn't be transparent. And then that should be just right. We'll put our little Barrow's Goldeneye in here. Get that out of harm's way. And I use the Barrow because it makes it nice and smooth. Don't forget your edges, as always. And that should, I think you count to about 30. Well, 10. Okay. I think we're about good. There we are. Nice, okay. Okay, so this photocopy, I have an HB printer. This is hammer mill paper, which is a really good quality acid-free copy paper. And as you can see, it left a really good image behind. We had just enough paint. Now, you do have to let this layer dry. That's very important. And it'll only take a few minutes because it's a fairly thin layer of paint. So Joshua will put on an interlude. Maybe we have an image of a Barrow's Goldeneye, I think. Okay, I think we're at the printing stage of the next layer, and the way to tell is to just put the back of your hand gently against the image, and if it doesn't feel, or if it feels cool, it's not. So just at the, but it's good. I know it's good. Okay, I've got my beige color here, and we're just going to add a tiny bit of this medium. This is the open, golden open medium. What it does is it makes it last a bit longer because the Amsterdam acrylics dry really fast. And we want to be able to lift an image and not have it stick. Okay. And we'll just wait a second and maybe take it up from this end, and then we can peek. to see. All right. Okay, that's pretty good. Maybe a tiny bit too much paint, but you can really see the image. I have a better one that I did last night, and I just used white, and that might have been a good idea. Let's just try white and see if we can pick up the rest of it. I'm all for experimenting. Again, it's that opaqueness. By mixing the medium, maybe we just messed with the opaqueness a bit. And when you see the image, I think you're good. Okay, let's try this just on the other side. And we'll use another paper on top. You have to allow the paint to penetrate into that transfer. It does take time. In the studio we tend to rush things and it doesn't work. Oh gosh. Okay. Look at that. So the white really works. Now we know. And we even get some of the background tone that's in the water. So that's a pretty good transfer. All right. So our paper is okay. White works. We might mix that neutral gray with white, a little bit more white for the next one. On this one here, this is just my copy paper. That's the heron. We've got pretty good detail because it was much more contrast. And I used, I think, ultramarine blue here, or phthalo blue. Yeah, probably phthalo blue with a neutral gray and a little bit of white. So here's our heron. Now this one could be very interesting because it's, you know, all the detail. I'm not sure. Look at the heron's got a really small head. He has a very little brain, poor thing. But he makes, you know, he does all right. And he nests, or he or she nests way up in the trees, which is absolutely unbelievable because they sit at the end of their nest, barely hanging on for dear life. It's like 60 feet below them. But, you know, it works for them. Anyway. Right, now, cleaning. Clean your plate. This is a critical aspect of transfers. I'm using a baby wipe. Get all the previous layer off. Makes interesting sounds. And then we'll just wipe it with a paper towel for the... So you want to make sure the baby wipe has got some alcohol in it, I think. So that degreases it as well, which is very important. Okay, so same as before. We'll mix a little bit of black and a little bit of the Prussian blue. This is the Prussian blue. And some black. Tiny bit of the medium. And a little, this one has the intensity that we want. Mix it all together with a palette knife. I think I remember telling you that a palette knife is straight, whereas a painting knife has a little bend in it. That one has more of a bend than you would like. It's plastic, it's on the end. Here we go. Remember, not too thick and not too thin. If it's too thin, the transfer work very well. It just sort of dries and then nothing much happens. You just get black. And I'm just going to we'll just put another piece of paper over top of that. Okay. Okay, fingers crossed. It's gonna look at this. That's awesome. Well, I'm looking at it and I think we're going to have a really good transfer. So I won't put any of the golden open medium in case that made a difference. So it's just going to be the white and the neutral. And again, you must see that image underneath, or it's just too much paint. And all you're lifting is more paint and not the image. Just about. I've got some funny streaks in there, which we don't want. Do it fairly quickly, because if you wait too long, nothing happens either. It's too dry. And now I don't, yes, this has a smooth side on one side and a rougher side on the other. And I'm just wondering, no, we printed this one, the good one, on the smooth side. Yeah. And that might have been the problem. This is the rough side, so it didn't pick up the image as well. This is the smooth side. So we're going to use the smooth side. All these things you have to worry about. And you must be patient because it works after a bit. You can't pull it off instantly. Usually if it sticks to the plate, you get a really good transfer. Ta-da! I am hoping I'm hearing some wild cheers in the background. Yes, success. Isn't that beautiful? Wow. And you can actually see all of the heron and his little tiny head. And his funny little feet. And he's right at the beach in front of our place. We have a lot of little fishes at this time of year, and the heron are coming to feed on the little fry that are coming. I think we have quite a gravelly beach, so gravelly, sandy, and the trout spawn, and then produces all the little fingerlings. And also the lake is, now I don't know if that's happened already, but they stock the lake. But those fish are considerably bigger than the little tiny, they're not called fingerlings, are they? Are they fingerlings at that size?
I think that's what you call them, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, there you are, okay. So, all right, at this little level, this is a 5x7 plate. And so far we're doing okay. And now we get on to the big guy. Well, we have our swan. I tried the geese, but as you can see, there's not a lot of contrast. If there's time, we'll run the geese and see if that will work. If not, I do have a print where it worked. But I think, there's a lot of contrast here. The water's quite dark. There's an awful lot of detail in the weeds that are dark. This will all be negative, so it should be interesting. Right, back to our black. Our Amsterdam black. And a little bit of the Prussian blue, which I can never remember to say, but somehow. And some open medium, just a little bit, and mix all this together. And we're just going to add a tiny bit of that just to increase the intensity of the black. Seems to work. And this might be the trick for those of you who are having serious trouble with these transfers. It's the quality of the paint. You have to have paint that's got saturated color, so your dollar store paints are not going to work for you. It has to be really good quality paint that has strong tinting strength, is what it's called. Now, working a little bit bigger shouldn't be any different than working small. But I'm so traumatized by what happened the other day that I'm not taking any chances, and I'm not, you know, getting too overconfident with this whole process. Right, Mr. Swan, or Mrs. Swan. And again, the Barrow helps because you're just doing it lightly. Don't put any pressure on. You just want good contact. And then count to 30 or 20, whatever. However long you want to count. I think we're probably getting close. And you'll see it anyway. There we go. And save those guys. Actually, you know, the other day when I was messing around with all this stuff, I actually used one of these black ones, and it made another transfer somehow. Now I'm not sure why that works, but it did. Not as you know, interesting as those ones, but it did. So I guess you can maybe ghost prints or something could be interesting. Something to experiment with anyway. Okay, we're going to have an interlude because we need to wait. This has got to be perfectly dry. That's a critical issue. This must be perfectly dry. Now, I haven't really done it with the open acrylics where it doesn't have to be dry and you can print right away. So you can experiment with other, you know, brands of paint. I don't have Arteza or any of those which people often use for transfers. I might send for them at some point. Maybe somebody will be generous. Or maybe Arteza will hear my pleas. That would be nice. Anyway, oh yes, and don't forget to like and subscribe our channel because we have so much fun here, and I hope you'll join us for lots of these videos. And we're waiting. So I've put some color out already on the paint palette, and we'll do it in several tones here. So at the back, we're going to roll it. Same rules apply, of course. Make sure you can see the image underneath. And then we're just going to put blue along the bottom here. Maybe slightly over the swan. This is a Trumpeter swan, by the way. And then we'll just make sure the center is well covered. I put a line up here just for registry. Now, remember the smooth and rough side, smooth works better. And this one takes a bit longer than the initial transfer. So let the paint work. So just to recap a little bit, I use the colored photographs and the copy paper that's with the colors, but I push it to the point where it looks black and white, or pretty close. You can see this is slightly blue. And up the saturation, up the contrast. Well, you'll see when it's mostly black and white. And that way you get the most out of your printer toner. I guess that's what it's called. Yeah, your toner. But I think we've got it under control pretty well. We could probably have waited a bit longer, but that's okay. It's looking pretty good. We've got the color tones. You can use a bit of and just touched up some of the white areas. This is all possible. Just because we're in a hurry as usual, and just to get rid of the white marks, and then a little bit down here in the... See? Everything's fixable. Okay. So that's pretty good. But don't be in such a hurry. Just wait for it to do. I might take off a little bit of that color that's on the swan here. Just with the medium. So that's another little trick I'm showing you. Things are fixable. The medium just sort of dissolves the paint again, and then you can get it back to the white. But I kind of like the blue at the bottom here, so that's good. Okay, so there you have it. So there's that one. Okay, oops, there's kind of a weird line here. We'll use that medium just to obscure that. Just looks like feathers now. Okay, so not bad. And the transfer worked. And for the pièce de résistance, my French accent is terrible, but Canada, after all, has 2 languages, and we should be able to speak the other language, right? Whichever one it is. Right, okay, now we need to clean this again. And Josh will do his interlude thing while I deal with this. So I'm got some black down and 2 or 3 drops of our golden open, and it's carbon black. It's a high flow acrylic, not the open. Okay, a little bit of the blue, or Prussian blue, for extra intensity. And just roll that out. Right. So back and forth, up and down. Relatively thin layer, but not so thin that it dries instantly and then nothing transfers. finally we have our crows. Now these should turn out really well. Fingers crossed, as usual. All right. Okay. The veranda here is perfect. This is my little Japanese tool for those of you who haven't seen it before. And it just lightly, don't put any pressure on, just lightly cover the surface. Do your edges. Wait for about 30 seconds. I happen to like crows. I don't think a lot of people do, but I think they're so interesting. And I remember once on the lawn, we have a big, on the lake we have a big rock, and there was a really large crow sitting there yakking at all the other crows as if he were the leader and he was giving them a lecture. And they were all listening attentively and nodding their heads, just like people. It was just hilarious. And I thought, crows are really quite fascinating. Okay, here we go. All right. Now here I think you can see the result of the toner that because the crows were mostly black, the toner takes over, and you can see that there's not quite the intensity in the black. Now we changed toner not too long ago. We have an HB printer, as I've said. But HB printing ink toner is extremely, extremely expensive, so we switched to a cheaper brand. And of course that means there's less intensity in the color, and so you really have to work with this. So for those of you who are working with the cheaper toners, this might be part of your problem. So when we do the transfer here, the final layer, these crows aren't going to be quite as intense as we would like them to be. They should have been really, really black. And again, we have to wait, but not long because it's pretty dry already. Just a tiny bit. 5 minutes, I think, should do it. But of course, we're just doing an interlude, and you will see it in a few seconds. So I just want to tell you about Nitsa Malik's mixed media photography book. And, it has a lot of good information, especially about this process. Maybe not quite as much as I've shown you today, but it really does solve a lot of your problems. And wonderful book, by the way. All right. So our crows are ready. We'll do some wild and crazy colors here. These colors have a fair amount of white in them, so I think we're going to be good. And I'll just use the paint directly. We'll do a little violet on the top. This is just carmine. Basically red. Okay, let's get this on here. And I've had good luck with these paints before for transfers, so they should be good. And I think Nitsa has shown some of her buildings have this color combination, and it worked well for her. And of course the buildings are nice and dark, just like our crows. And I'm just going to go to the line here. And brayer well. And I put it down on the smooth side, and it's just multimedia paper. And we're just going to let it cook here for a few minutes. No rushing. Now with the swan, I had used my little air heater, and maybe that was what made it stick, because it melts the polymers that are in the acrylic paint. And it's not wax that makes it resist, it's actually the polymer particles. Polymer is a plastic. And when the little polymer particles are not happy, they will misbehave. Especially when your room is too warm. Now we're sitting at, what are we sitting at here? About 21 degrees. So we're almost pushing our luck. I wouldn't go higher than about, 25 I think is too far. We're talking Celsius, of course. Now what does that translate to Fahrenheit? We used to have Fahrenheit in Canada, but now it's all Celsius, whatever. People are still going back and forth. We're not totally one way or the other yet. 70, okay. So let's see what's happening here. Oh yes. Yeah, and not sticking at all. Good. Oops. Kind of weird cloud shapes on the top there. And see, this crow here is like a shadow of itself. I don't know. Now this is so funny, because I figured that this one would be the one that would turn out the best. It would be our ta-da moment to finish off with a video in this whole tutorial. But yeah, you just never know with printmaking. And I mean, look at the intensity of the black. You would have think, but it's just the toner quality. I mean, we could run another one, but there's only so much time in these sessions. So there you have it. It's good. It worked. The transfer worked really well. Our colors are a little sketchy here, but they're interesting. The red looks really good. So we've finished another session here at Shoreline Studio. Thanks so much for joining us. We have so much fun here. It's always an adventure, lots of experiments. I'm always doing weird and wonderful things. So we'll catch you another time. Take care, and take care of your families. These are terrible times in the world. So have some fun with art, and try and, don't feel too depressed about the situation that's at hand, and do what you can to help. Bye for now.